Hi, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening. It kind of depends on where you are, I guess. I always say good everything. And welcome to this webinar hosted by filerskeepers and PrivacyPerfect. We're going to talk today about retention and privacy. The full title is Retention Imperative, Turning Privacy Obligations into Operational Practice. We're very happy that you're here. This webinar will be recorded, so you will also be able to access it later, view it, and share with us. Yeah, let's dive into it. Yeah, I'm Wanne Pemelaar. I'm the co-founder, currently CEO for filerskeepers and another baby company called Lawstronaut. I'm here with Nicolien, and Nicolien is the CEO of PrivacyPerfect, and she will do a proper introduction of herself and the company after this. But what we wanted to do today is really dive into retention and how that has changed over the last decade, I would say, especially with the onset of the GDPR and all kinds of privacy rules all over the world. It has changed the game. It has it has raised the stakes, but it has also professionalized the way we look at retention. I'm very proud that filerskeepers and PrivacyPerfect are collaborating to make it hopefully a little bit easier for you to tie retention to your records of processing activities, your ROPAs, but also just more generally your privacy program and your AI program. That's it. Here's another slide about us, so you can read about my hobbies and everything. But maybe Nicolien, you can introduce yourself and PrivacyPerfect.
Yeah. Thank you, Wanne, and hello everyone. I'm Nicolien Matser, CEO of PrivacyPerfect. Our focus for today indeed is turning data retention in something abstract from something abstract into something practical and manageable. At PrivacyPerfect, we do this by connecting legal requirements directly to everyday processes and systems. And I will show how ROPAs can serve as a bridge between high-level rules and concrete practice, making retention not just as a policy on paper, but something enforceable, auditable, and also transparent. For CISOs, DPOs, but also for business leaders alike, the message is simple, guys. Retention doesn't have to be a headache. It can be a practical tool, ensure consistency, compliance, and above all, trust. PrivacyPerfect, shall I go further with the introduction of the company PrivacyPerfect, Wanne?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, we are a Dutch company. Founded in the Netherlands a decade ago. So PrivacyPerfect is a governance, risk, and compliance platform. We help organizations manage data privacy, information security, vendor risk, but also AI risk in one place. It's crafted by privacy lawyers and experts, built on a solid legal foundation and ensuring that features are grounded in regulatory reality. And our mission is to make complex regulations simple, in a practical way, accessible, so teams can spend less time on red tape and more time on creating value for the business. And PrivacyPerfect organizations gain clarity, consistency, and trust. So we're turning compliance from a burden into an enabler for business resilience. And that's what we explain today. We explain how we see that you can benefit from our tooling from filerskeepers, but also PrivacyPerfect. And we show you in live with a real life demo how it works in practice.
Then, all right. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So maybe if you could go to the next slide where, this is where, sorry,
and then you can go, Wanne, with filerskeepers, because I explained already a little bit of PrivacyPerfect.
Brilliant. So for those of you who don't know filerskeepers yet, what we do is we read all the laws in the world, I'm not kidding, and we take from their rules to tell companies how long they should store their records and data. And then we help apply those rules to the records and data of our clients. First and foremost, by building retention schedules, so overviews of records and data and rules or retention periods. We have a dashboard where you can calculate what's the most optimal retention period. It's all fully customizable. You can make any changes you'd like. And most of all, we can keep that up to date. So when the law changes, we can send you a ping and say, hey, the law has changed. It went up from 3 to 5 years. Do you accept or decline? So now that clients have an up-to-date retention schedule, they come to us and they go, now what? And then usually we say, now you implement. And that's where we see a huge challenge, where you need a whole ecosystem of solutions, basically. And the danger of records retention and also of compliance in general is that you're just going to shove a whole lot of paper and you need to do a lot of manual exercise. So we're very excited to be able to integrate into a tool like PrivacyPerfect so that we can actually push that knowledge to PrivacyPerfect. Now, why are we a big fan of PrivacyPerfect before we go into the agenda? And that is because besides many other really cool features, PrivacyPerfect is actually able to create a baseline for a group of companies or a large organization, and then you could export that baseline for every single opco or legal entity or however you have structured your group, which works really well. So you can actually create a large ROPA and all kinds of mini ROPAs embedded in there, because it can be different between different legal entities. It's just super cool how that works. And it works also really well in view of, a topic like retention, which is already in its nature very local and global at the same time. Yeah, so that's it. Maybe just quickly on the agenda, we want to give you a bit of context. Yeah, why are we talking about retention now? What has changed? Basically, it's a topic that's already decades old, or maybe even hundreds of years old. And then, yeah, we can discuss about how do we go from legal logic to actual implementing that into ROPAs, from policy to practice. But how do you make legal decisions in practice? We got a lot of questions there on the how of things, because you're just, people are usually drowning in the large volume of rules. And then what's let's apply that. Let's apply it in global HR. And then what could a cool solution look like? And that's where we'll dive into a bit of a demo. Let's go to the next slide, please.
Yeah.
All right. So just to give a bit of context, why retention now? What's changed? Well, what I noticed is that people are actually barely compliant with GDPR, and they are already kind of like completely under the spell of AI. Sounds familiar. But I still get clients on the phone today, a large Scandinavian multinational that says, we're doing a privacy assessment and actually readiness project. So still, many years after GDPR, this is still an issue, and you can always reach new levels of maturity, basically. And I think the GDPR and the entire wave of global regulations that followed the GDPR and kind of copied the GDPR changed the game, because we did have records management and records retention, and that was always very much focused on keeping the data and making sure that you apply with minimum requirement. But then when the GDPR came, suddenly any minimum retention period became a de facto maximum. because if the law says keep this for 6 years and that minimum has ended, then immediately the privacy law kicks in and says no longer than necessary. So then you need a very good reason as to keeping the data longer. You need to specify that. Loads of folks don't realize that. There's a big shift now happening in the US where slowly but surely in state law and in specialized federal privacy laws, the no longer than necessary requirement is creeping in. Yeah. And in Canada, it's creeping in to the laws. So that's a big change. The GDPR, the EU legislature has really made clear we want real compliance, not just paper compliance. Yeah. And they're actually enforcing it. So it's very easy for a regulator to prove that you're not compliant. Yeah. The only thing they need to do is just ask, basically. And it is very common enforcement. Yeah. I think we published a little social media post a while ago where we said that in certain countries, almost every single case is now a privacy case, revolves around retention, just because it's a nice side catch for them. Yeah. They don't come in because of retention. They come in because you have a data breach or someone complained about you. But while they're in, they will ask, hey, by the way, how long are you keeping these data? And if they have some suspicions, they will go to the database level and can go row by row and ask you how long you're keeping things. Anyone, if you just take the appropriate level of granularity, will fail this test, of course. So it is a real risk. It's not just theoretical; it materializes every day. So yeah, you'll need to prepare. And AI is a nice reason. Yeah, it's not just there. You can see the GDPR and the privacy rules as the stick, and I think the AI is maybe the carrot, where you can also say, well, AI needs a lot of data, but it needs to be high quality data. So you need to really, really look into, things like data retention, data minimization, to make sure that you don't have any rot and redundant, obsolete, or trivial data in your database. So before you can use it, you need to tidy it up, basically. All right. Maybe we can go to the next slide.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, how can we make it a little bit more concrete? Indeed, legal logic to ROPAs, retention rules. We already discussed, and Wanne also explained that retention rules in law are often written in broad, fragmented terms. They say what needs to happen. For example, the certain category of records must not be kept longer than necessary. Yeah, Wanne also explained, but they rarely explain how this should be embedded in day-to-day operations. Now, the ROPA is a natural place to bridge that gap, in our opinion. It already connects purposes, data categories, and legal bases. By extending it with retention periods or reviewing triggers, retention rules become more contextual and actionable. So when retention is embedded in your ROPA, three things are happening. First of all, transparency improves. You can show regulators not only what data you keep, but also why and how long. Secondly, consistency improves. Legal logic is linked directly to operational records, reducing the gap between policy and practice. And third, scalability improves. Downstream systems can draw directly from the ROPA, enabling automation and cross-jurisdictional reporting. So in short, ROPAs turn retention from a more abstract compliance problem in a structured operational solution. Let me show you in the next slide. From policy to practice, retention in ROPAs. Let's compare two approaches that most organizations also should recognize. Policy-only mode. Retention guidance sit in a policy document. That's what you see here in the PDF on the left side. It might say HR files must be retained for 7 years. The problem is that the guidance isn't tied to any system or activity. So IT teams struggle to apply with consistently, and auditors come in, and they often find gaps between what the policies say and what actually happens. Maybe you recognize that. The policy exists, but it doesn't drive behavior in the team. So ROPA embedded in the embedded mode at the left side, where you see in the center here, PrivacyPerfect with ROPA, then connected with filerskeepers. You can also create an API between the database, other systems you link for HR, Workweek, for example. We have it in the live demo, deletion triggers, and audit and reporting can be connected here. So now imagine that the same rule integrated into the ROPA, each HR processing activity has its own retention period or review date specified, directly linked to the purpose of the lawful basis. Compliance teams can run reports to demonstrate the rationale between each retention rules, and IT can align the system settings and deletion works with what's in the ROPA. Suddenly, retention is not only declared, it's enforceable, auditable, and consistent across the organization. So that's what you can do with automation and connection of all the system with APIs. Then we go to you, Wanna, again.
Yeah, and I think that's the future. It's the only way you can actually become compliant, to be honest. So if you have that PDF in isolation, that's nice, but it just ends up in a virtual drawer, basically. And sometimes it's really ad hoc. It's like whenever the business feels like implementing a retention period, they will reach out to you and ask you a question about the retention period. But then usually what we see is that it immediately gets stuck, because it's like, okay, so how do we tie the retention period, which usually operates at a little bit of a higher level of granularity, right? Like keep the personnel file, 10 years after termination. I'm just saying something. But how does that then tie in to like your Workday system or your SAP SuccessFactors? Yeah, that there is a gap there. Yeah. So you want to bridge that gap. You want to tie it in with, the ROPAs, which is kind of like your central repository for anything privacy and hopefully also anything system. And then you need to tie that in. And it's a difficult thing, and it's something to where only with effort you can become more compliant over the years. But we do see very positive developments now where companies are actually tackling this and becoming compliant. So legal decisions in practice. So you need to build a retention schedule, and then how do you do that, right? Just to reiterate the point, non-compliance is easy to prove. Okay. So the only thing they will ask you is, hey, do you have this data? How old is it? Yeah. So in cases where you don't have the data where you should, you just say, oh, sorry, I can't produce it. And then they go, that's a fine. You should have had it. Yeah. And in case of maximums where you're no longer allowed to have the data, yeah, it's too old, then it will be like, do you still have the data? You'll have to answer truthfully, or they will do their own audit, whatever. And then they will see, oh, the data is too old. Yeah, so it's super easy for them. They can just slap a fine on. And why is that? Because the reason for retention periods, especially the minimums ones, is a legislature thinks of a new rule, let's say a health and safety rule or an environmental rule, and they're like, how are we going to make sure that those companies are going to comply with that rule? Yeah, well, if only we just impose a rule that they keep the records, then we can verify if they are compliant. And if they fail to keep it, yeah, then we can slap a fine on, or in the worst case, throw management into prison. So it's very easy to prove. So you will need to audit, keep an audit trail of everything you do. Yeah. And that audit trail should not just be your policy, it should be also all these subsequent steps that you need to take. And that's exactly what we're trying to achieve here. Yeah. So let's go back to the legal reality. Let's say
the daily practice.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
So
shall I go to the next slide? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, give me one more minute if you don't mind.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So different countries have different rules. We need to zoom in on those. There is not one size fits all. Yeah, you will, especially in, for example, HR, and I think Nicolene will demonstrate that in a minute. There is a wide divergence of rules. Some countries want to keep something very short and others really long. So you need to do this in a risk-based manner. The laws can be conflicting. One says maximum 5 years, the other one says minimum 50 years. What do we do with this? Yeah. You need to make a risk-based decision, and you need to also maybe identify where there is a country with a longer minimum or shorter maximum. When you start implementing all of this into your systems, the computer can say no. Yeah, so it can be that, oh, I'm active in 20 countries. I need to implement 20 different retention periods. The computer can say, no, we only allow one. Yeah, so you need to make practical decisions, golden standards as we call them, and you will face a lot of other issues like I'm trying to map the retention schedule to the system, but for example, the system says, yeah, even though there is a sick leave and regular leave under the law, and there are 2 different retention periods, the system says, no, we code all absence and we group everything together. Yeah. Data dependency. I want to delete A, but I cannot delete A without deleting also B. So, but A and B have different retention periods. What are we going to do? Those are all legal decisions, yeah, that you need to make. And therefore, you need to document all your decisions very well. So that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, great, Wanne, and also amazing to see how a reliable database of filerskeepers can connect with the solution as PrivacyPerfect. The aim to make simple, although it's not always simple, and we try to, and hopefully we can make it a little bit more fun for the people as well. So retention challenge in global HR doesn't mean that local HR companies cannot work with our solution. We have a scalable platform from SME companies to Pro Enterprise, and then the holding multi-tenant solution. But let's bring this to life with a practical example. That's what I like to do always. We always use practical examples. So you are the HR manager, and the personal administration you have to handle within an international holding. This is an area where data retention and local differences often create real challenges. Also, Wanne explained with the previous slide. And in a holding structure, the board wants to maintain oversight and uniformity, while the local department, HR department, must comply with their own national laws and regulations. Storing employment contracts, pay slips, performance reviews may seem universal, yet retention periods vary greatly from one country to the other. That's also what we explained during the previous slide. So, for example, you are a multi-national company with an office in Japan, in India, for example, and in Europe, in Amsterdam. In Japan, files must often be kept for a shorter period. But in the Netherlands, the GDPR imposes stricter requirements for justification, but also for transparency. And in India, the labor law requires considerably longer retention and certain employee records. Now, the risk if an HR team in Japan mistakenly applies Dutch retention rules, or if Indian holds the files for too long, this can result in regulatory penalties. So reputational damage is also a thing often happen, and most importantly, a loss of trust. And that's not what you want as organization. These are risks that are in an international organization absolutely cannot afford. So let's see how we can solve this problem. PrivacyPerfect with the multinational tenant solution. An HQ tenant and enterprise tenants underneath. They are split with a sort of Chinese wall, but you can approach it top down, and you can report it top down. So our multi-tenant solution ensures that the holding entity defines the central policy, while local entities apply their own jurisdiction and specific rules. That makes it very flexible. Through integration with filerskeepers, every HR team knows precisely which document must be stored, how long they may or must be stored, and the exact legal source behind each retention period. That makes it practical and workable. The system therefore combines global governance with local compliance. The holding maintains control and consolidated reporting, while the HR teams worldwide work with their up-to-date, legally validated guidelines. And that's a big plus and benefit. The result is that all the HR departments can focus fully on the core task without the risk of applying incorrect retention period. For employees and managers, it means confidence that their data is handled correctly, and for the holding, it guarantees a uniform, reliable, and compliant personal administration across all the countries and jurisdictions. In short, we deliver clarity, trust, and confidence in a high complex regulatory landscape. It seems that we can turn the complex situation in a simple way of working. But Vincent will show you now in a minute, I guess. Let me check how it works in practice. Welcome, Vincent, and we really appreciate you as one of our amazing team members to do the demo in real life here.
Thank you. Thanks, Nicolien, and thanks, Wanne, as well. So as the slide here says, I'm product owner and support manager at PrivacyPerfect, and I'll be showing a little bit of the use case that was just explained with basically the content of the whole webinar so far in our solution, as well as filerskeepers solution. So if you give me 1 second, I'll start sharing my screen. And then we should switch over pretty smoothly. Can you confirm that it's now showing? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, so as I said, this is what we're looking at. You should, or I hope you recognize the picture with the organization structure. We're now in this use case today looking at a fictional company called Workweek. It's an HR or company that makes an HR tool. But of course, they also have to deal with their own HR matters and all over the world. Because as you see, there's a global HQ, but they also have offices in the Americas, in EMEA, and in the APAC regions. And there are examples of the countries underneath, as you see here. So this is an example of our multi-tenant solution, where you can also start to see how you can implement global privacy governance, get insights. You get a dashboard here that is basically over your whole organization, but you can also quickly zoom in on specific regions, and the dashboard will automatically adapt to whatever you select here, as you can see. But for now, for today, I'm going to go back here to our overall structure, and we're going to zoom in on the Netherlands. So we're just going to enter the local environment here.
Can I ask a quick question, Vincent? Sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe for our American guests today, is it say you're like U.S. domestic? Is it also possible there to have like multiple states within the U.S. Because that's where this is headed now, right? There, like a lot of state laws that are different, and they all require something else. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good question. So the structure, and maybe we'll get back to it also, but the structure I showed is completely flexible. So we just made this example for today with these countries in there, but it doesn't need to be by country. It can be by state. There can be multiple layers to it, so we just kept it simple for today for the demo. But you can also divide it by business line or by entities, for example. It doesn't have to be countries or geography by any means. So we're now looking at the dashboard of the Netherlands as a country. So this would be the entity of the country of the company in the Netherlands. And we're going to just look at the privacy records where we have assessments, we have processings and breaches, as you see on the left-hand side. So if we filter down on the processings, then we're basically looking at the ROPA register of this Netherlands entity of Workweek. And the example we have for today is this top one, which is payroll administration. Of course, a recognizable generic processing activity, data processing activity that I hope all organizations that are present in the webinar today recognize. And we also see that there are multiple jurisdictions applied to it. So here you see that I'm looking at Europe, so GDPR, India, and Japan. And this is because, of course, there can be a local ROPA register for this entity, but as is the case with many multinationals, there will always be shared processing activities between countries, between entities that cover multiple jurisdictions. So if I click on this one, we're going to just look at what the actual processing activity looks like. And we're going to go to edit mode. We won't stop by all of the fields here. Because that's not really necessary, but you can see, for example, the main one is probably purpose for the processing, so personal management and payroll administration. And if you look on the left-hand side, we see the different chapters that such a processing or ROPA record is made up of, and each has its own fields. So here we look at data subject categories, personal data categories, and if I scroll down, personal data items, and we see that the retention periods field is still empty here. So basically somebody got to this point and thought, yeah, what do I fill in here? Well, luckily there's a direct link here to filerskeepers. So I'm going to click on this to get the help that I need, and I need to switch screens. So here we are. So now we are directly in filerskeepers, and of course I've prepared some things for the demo to make it a little bit easier and quicker. But we have here under this first field, we have some context specifications. So for the HR use case that we have today, I've selected personnel files, PTO, holiday and leave, sick and medical leave, and benefits. And of course, there's a possibility to add much more here. And then on the next field, I've selected the 3 jurisdictions that we have for today. So then it's just basically a matter of clicking search. And filerskeepers, and this is why I love filerskeepers, they just give you directly, I don't know if you know this one, but the way I always describe filerskeepers to customers is you've basically built a small army of data lawyers and release them all over the world to map all the retention obligations that exist. And then you basically get direct results in here. So we see that if I scroll a little bit further to the right, because I may be a little bit zoomed in, that the golden standard that you mentioned earlier, Wanne, this is because we're looking at multiple jurisdictions with different types of obligations for the same context, right? So here we have it specifically. So if we want to know just for India, if we want to know just for Japan, then we see all the detail here. But what filerskeepers automatically does is it gives you the golden standard, which means if you comply with this one, then you're basically okay. So 5 years from the date the employment ended. If we go a bit further down, 5 years from the date of recording. A bit further down is the same one again. And then the last one is 8 years from the date of termination of employment. So now if we switch back to PrivacyPerfect, I can click the field here and I'll just add them very easily like this. And now we have everything we need in just a matter of seconds. Of course, the next step would be to connect each retention period to, for example, the specific sets of personal data that fall under that retention period and so on. But that's something that we also have functionalities for in PrivacyPerfect. So if I now click close.
Maybe to add to that, Vincent, it's also a matter if your system can support that. because if you look at something like SAP or Workday, they always kind of group data fields. Yeah, so even if you have like name, address, they kind of go, they group it and they call personal data, and that's what they then call a purgeable data type or an info type or whatever, and that's what you can manage. So usually it also happens at that little bit higher level of granularity. So if that's the case, then you're already okay with this level. Yeah. If the system says, oh no, it needs to be super granular, then you can go granular. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you can make those kinds of groupings. Now we've defined it at the level of one processing activity, but within the processing activity, you can make different groupings. You can make groupings over multiple processing activities. So you can basically look at your data in all different directions. But now we're done with this example. So we spent only a few minutes on this, and we can go on to the next one. And as you saw, every time we can just click the direct link to filerskeepers, fill in what we need, and it will give it back to us. And this is in the end everything you look for if you're, especially for large multinationals, of course, but also at more local level. If you just need one country, but you have multiple contexts that need to be combined, it also works. So basically, you get more time to focus on your real work, and retention is taken care of, and for the whole organization, also for management, for everyone, in terms of reporting, this brings peace of mind, it brings trust, that you have everything consistent, compliant, and future-proof.
Yeah, and especially the future-proof part is also really nice, because think about the situation where there's an update to your schedule. You have then checked the change in filerskeepers and then updated it, and then I believe you should be able to update that again, right? In PrivacyPerfect, it will be reflected there, and that's just super important, because that's usually where companies get stuck, because they do a one-off exercise, they don't look at it anymore, and then at one point 3 years later someone asks, hey, is this still up to date? The moment that question gets asked, nothing happens anymore, because at that moment you can't trust the data anymore, so you can't implement anything. So the whole point is to keep this up to date. Change is coming continuously. Yeah, in filerskeepers we always say, don't try to follow us, you'll go crazy, but have a process around it. Every quarter, every half year, every year, doesn't matter. You go in, you check, you make the updates, you make sure that everything is linked. Yeah. And
Exactly.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's exactly it. And you mentioned the example of, also the amount of times that I've seen a ROPA that was last updated 3 years ago or even 5 years ago. What you then get also on top of everything is that it's not the same people anymore in the company. So that complicates things even more in that case. But also for that, there's timers involved that you can set in PrivacyPerfect. So you check filerskeepers, and again, it's just, you do it in seconds instead of hours and hours.
Yeah. Brilliant. Anything else, Vincent?
That's it, unless there are any other questions.
Yeah, so happy to open up the floor for any questions. You can put them in the Q&A. So if there's any, then let me know. I think that oh, there's a question. So a question from Ryan. When you're trying to operationalize retention rules, how do you deal with legacy systems? Yeah, that weren't built with privacy operations in mind. Great question. So I hope that what you mean by legacy system is something that you're no longer using, right? So there's a lot of, there's two types of legacy. I think I can interpret the question in two ways. One is we have since moved over to the cloud, but we're still keeping our on-premise system as a legacy system because there's a lot of data in there. Yeah, it's a risk and it's a cost, right? At that moment, you may be paying a lot of SAP license fees for something you're not really, it doesn't get maintained that well, it is not secure. So then what you seriously should invest in is a retention schedule. Look at, is this system, does it contain data that's just basically too old? We can get rid of it, and then you can maybe sunset the entire system. Yeah. Another option is to actually get the data out of the system and put it in a more modern archiving tool. Yeah, which is also very well possible nowadays. And there you have more options with regards to retention. If you mean legacy system in the sense of it's old but still in production, so to say, then I would say, yeah, that is a real issue. And if retention is not possible, then you seriously should start reaching out to the vendor, and consider moving if they are not going to change that. And if it's something that's super important and they offer you some minimal way of deleting data, like one retention period, yeah, then it's again a decision for you and your leadership to make. Are we then gonna boil it down to one retention period, everything 10 years, let's say? You're not doing data minimization. You're not. You're probably keeping things longer than necessary, but hey ho, you're not keeping it forever. Yeah. So that's one thing. Yeah. Let's see. We have a question about Microsoft email. Oh, be careful! I might start a whole rant about email. So we can do probably a webinar on that whole topic. To be honest, I can take that one as well. Do you guys have any thoughts about the topic of email, or do you want me to take that?
Yeah, I think you can take that one.
Okay. So with email, it's even more complex. Email, the short end of this whole story is that email is not a record in isolation. It is a means of communication. You technically have to look at the content of the email to determine how long you need to keep it. Then again, nobody is ready for that, because that either involves massive manual tagging of emails or a massive data discovery exercise. And a lot of people, a lot of companies aren't ready there yet. So what we do see is omnibus retention periods that are implemented. There are lots of angles to that, and I think it's a good idea for another webinar to talk about this kind of unstructured data, because it's something to explore. But there are rules out there, sound a bit archaic, that actually deal with the question on how long you need to keep commercial correspondence, and those could apply to email. Yeah. So hopefully that gives a bit of an idea. I get a lot of questions about that are for me. Sorry. How do we provide a golden standard? Yeah. So it's a statistical analysis. And we look at every country as a sovereign country. So every country has the same weight when we do the statistical analysis. Yeah. So it's not something that you can change the weights. What you can do is include or exclude certain countries in the calculation. But that's we don't believe that one country is more important than another. That's a very difficult statement to make, also in our tooling. We look at the retention, the countries and states in your retention schedule. We calculate what we would consider the optimal retention period. That's not the longest, it's not the shortest, it's something in between. And then as opposed to that, we offer you the country deviations. So maybe one last question before we sign off for PrivacyPerfect, to give you the last word. What's next for PrivacyPerfect? What's on your roadmap, besides, of course, that we have this wonderful connector between our two companies? But what is relevant for you?
Is that, I think, a question for the product owner, Vincent?
Okay.
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say we love doing these kinds of partnerships and integrations. I think that's really a really big enabler for privacy teams, and you also see that the whole landscape is becoming more and more complex. So the more time you can save as a privacy officer, global privacy officer, and so on, the more important it becomes that you can have these systems connected to each other and talking to each other. Yeah, another thing for us is, as you know, we came from basically a much more limited privacy privacy management solution with a ROPA and a DPI, and we've only shown a very, very small part of even that today. And we've evolved over the years to being a GRC solution for not only privacy management with multiple jurisdictions worldwide, but also information security management, AI risk management. So more and more also we're looking to also with filerskeepers, because you don't just do personal data, right? It's also just data in general. So all of these things get more and more important.
Oh,
Yeah,
brilliant.
and we also have the customer in mind with everything we do. So we co-create our roadmap together with our customers. We align with our customers. So the collaboration functionality, the intake forms for non-users, we try to focus on make life of our users as simple as possible, that they can save time and focus on the core business. And at the same time be compliant, of course, and also avoid a data breach or a security incident by managing the information security management using AI for boost innovation, but at the same time also manage risk by doing the pre-assessment or the full assessment. We have an incident management tool in our solution. That's basically our focus, to cooperate and communicate a lot with customers and hear where their need is, and then develop solutions that helps our customers to be compliant but also save time. And yeah, that's I think in a nutshell what we do. And in integration one with amazing tools like filerskeepers, but we have a marketplace. I think Nathan is also somewhere in the green room, but we have a marketplace with integrations of many applications. So you can, sorry?
No, I said wonderful.
Wonderful. Okay. No, I thought you would like to interrupt or add something, but yeah, Vincent, with Jira, with all type, even ChatGPT can be integrated, or DeepL for translation. We have the user interface in multiple languages available, but you can also integrate with DeepL for the input data that you can translate it in the local language where you log in or how your settings are set up. So that's in a nutshell.
So a vendor that actually listens, a privacy vendor that actually listens to your needs. That's very refreshing. All right. I see one more question came in by Emily, and she said, "I love the idea of automation helping with enforcement, I believe of policies and everything, but is that realistic for smaller teams?" Well, I'll start with the answer, and then maybe you can give your perspective. I believe that automation is the only way a smaller team can ever be compliant, right? So without automation, it's like, why even bother? And sometimes I also find it so interesting. We're now talking about making the GDPR friendlier for SMEs and all of that. And usually what I see in terms of proposals is it just makes everything worse. It doesn't even, makes the burden less or something. Same with the German government introduced a third retention period for bookkeeping just to make it easier for people. Well, I don't think so, because it's better if you just have one like the rest of the world. Is it realistic for smaller teams? Yes and no. No, because it's a lot of work, and those GDPR rules are definitely geared towards bigger companies, but that's also how compliance and enforcement scales. Basically, you need to invest now to set something up, and you can take more risk as a startup or scale up. But as you're growing, you need to mature your compliance program, and that's how you need to take everything a bit more serious. And I do believe that you need to embed compliance as soon as you can, so that you don't have a massive project once you're at scale. Yeah. So that's just my 2 cents. Any thoughts, guys?
Yeah, definitely. I think you started on the same track, so we're on the same page there. You said automation is the only way forward. I think it already was before AI, but now in the age of AI, it's not only the only way forward, it's the only way to even stay where you are, to survive, in other words. And as companies start doing more and more automation, not only in compliance and enforcement, but just in general, you need to keep up as a compliance team, as a privacy team. You need to also look at AI compliance now and AI governance in general. How are you going to combine that with privacy governance? So there's so much overlap and everything so dynamic nowadays that I think automation, like you said, it's the only way. And for smaller teams, what we generally see is if you're part of a smaller team, you generally cover more than just one specific domain or topic as your responsibility, let's say. So the more you can automate, the better you're going to perform.
Wonderful. I think on that note, I'd like to finish. Our vision within filerskeepers is that we want to solve records retention once and for all. That sounds a bit lame because you can say that about any problem, but the ones that are dealing with records retention understand what I mean. And the most important part is we cannot do that alone. We need collaborations like we have with PrivacyPerfect to really start working on end-to-end solutions. So connect to PrivacyPerfect and then connect out again to all your source systems. Then you get in control. Wonderful. Well, thanks so very much for joining us today. We're available after the webinar as well. Feel free to reach out to us should you still have any questions or want to discuss further one-on-one. Yeah, but for now, have a wonderful day.
Thanks everyone for
Thank you.
being here, and thanks Wannen for the nice cooperation and teamwork again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wannen. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.